Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of what we may just be calling the Bamasecs Show. It is Thursday, March 31st, and I am your host, Brian Shea. Joining me on video here is Andrew, sole founder or co-founder of Bamasecs?
Actually not a founder.
Not a founder.
I'm like the third person to inherit being in charge of it.
Oh geez, I need to learn more of my Bamasecs history.
Michael McNeil founded it, but he's old, so he let it go a while ago. He played on LSU back in the day when they made nationals and stuff. John Rosenmark took over after that, but he's now a doctor and has no time, so I inherited it from him.
Nice. And then also joining us with just audio on a road trip right now is TJ.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, so I'm the fourth guy. So take that history and then add me. There you go.
Sweet. Yeah, so any car noises you guys hear on the recording, well, you can blame him for it.
Yeah, I honk a lot. So,
So I was thinking the best topic to start off with tonight, just because of a good intersection of ways we can go from there and what we want to talk about later, is the past Bamasecs Select versus Atlanta Hustle game you guys put on.
Yeah, so that was, it really blew both of us away how well it ended up going. So TJ actually lived with the GM of Hustle, John Bosey. So he kind of like approached us, I don't know, when was it, TJ? Back in like September or October?
yeah, probably early fall. He kind of threw the idea up in the air at me while I was walking out the door to go to work one morning. So I didn't really comprehend it at the time, but thought about it for a little bit, came back to him and said, let's dive into this, let's see where this can go, I love it, and just really started planning from there.
Yeah, so we've been talking about it off and on, and it was one of those things that we talked about it and talked about it, and it kind of, I don't know, over Christmas and January, we didn't really touch base a lot. We were like, I kind of thought, I don't know, maybe this isn't going to happen, but credit to Bosey for driving it. Credit to all the players for jumping on board, because we really didn't know what to expect when, we sent out some invitations and some, open up applications, and we were like, we may get 10, maybe 15 of the top 30 or 40 players in the region come play, and there aren't many guys that you would put on a all-region team that didn't end up showing up. And I think it showed on the field.
Yeah, being on the field was incredible. I actually got the opportunity to coach that team. Coaching is a slight word. I was basically able to be around them and hang out and witness how awesome these guys are as players.
And also to remind them not to throw the disc to refs.
Yes, man, I'll tell you what, side note, credit to all the coaches in ATL, because the game speed is unbelievable, and it's challenging. So, but overall, man, Francis hit it right on the head. It was just not just the game result, but the whole process ended up being a lot more, fun and fulfilling, and I think when it came to popularity, a big hit, and much more than we were expecting.
Yeah, we had attendance-wise, like between 550 and like 600 people show up to the game, which was, I think Bosey said it was probably their third highest attended game, counting all the stuff from last year. And obviously, opening day is always the most attended, and I don't know what else after that, but that says a lot about people that are interested in college ultimate. And at the height of the stream, there was close to 600 people watching the game, which is better than most of the ultimate streams outside of nationals. So that was good. People actually were interested in hearing what we had to say about people playing ultimate, which was pretty silly.
Yeah, and watching the stream myself, I could definitely notice the crowd there was a good size.
Yeah, it was. They got pretty rowdy. They were there was one high schooler playing at the end of the game. They were chanting for TJ to throw him on the field, which he obliged.
Oh yeah, they were getting rowdy. It's actually Stan Birdsong of Paideia in Atlanta. he had made the U22 team, so we thought it'd be awesome to throw him on the team. And I'll tell you what, especially during drills and warm-ups and stuff, he stayed right there with those college players. It was pretty cool to see, and we were glad to be able to throw him on there and crowd a show there.
But yeah, from talking with like Hannah Leathers and some other discussions behind the scenes, I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happens in the women's game, either maybe this summer or next year. We're not exactly sure what that looks like, but I hope that happens because
something outside of a second All-Star tour.
Yeah, not like on that level,
right?
From the All-Star tour, just kind of like a one-off game, kind of an All-Star game setting, and we can even see that the Seattle AUDL team was advertising today that they're hosting a women's kind of All-Star showcase before their opening game. I think against like San Francisco this weekend. They're playing an All-Star game, so I think the idea is probably going to spread. It'll be interesting to see if any other regions would be able to pull in the kind of like college talent like we did, because having like a kind of a regional publication, I guess, like Bamasecs is easy to connect players, and so some of these other places that don't kind of have that, is there any like single group that has the connection to pull in those kind of players? And like, even the Southeast is pretty large. I mean, we had guys drive in from New Orleans and some from the Panhandle of Florida and farther south than that. So people are driving 6-8 hours, and some of these other regions, I don't know, the Atlantic Coast or up in the Northeast, they could bring in all their best players 3-4 hours. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone else piggybacks on the idea. We like to think we're trendsetters.
Yeah, and just for everyone to think about how big the Southeast is, look at Texas and the triangle of Dallas, Austin, and Houston on a map, and remember that they were complaining that they had to drive down to the southern tip of their state for sectionals last year.
Woo. Yeah, that was an interesting setup. I mean, I understand why they did that to get the Mexican teams involved, which is that's an interesting idea of the Mexican teams playing in sectionals. But I actually played before USA Ultimate changed the college regions, when it was the old South region, when it went from Alabama all the way to Texas. And basically, Texas always hosted regionals, so we always had to. At the time I was at Mississippi State, we always had to drive to Texas for regionals.
Yeah, luckily we lost you guys in that game to go, so we didn't have to make that.
All right.
But I mean, yeah, about the game, it was a great experience. That was Hardman and I's first time ever calling a game, and it is really hard to do. TJ's done that one AUDL game?
Yeah, so I did the Snake in the Grass game when it was Raleigh versus Atlanta. We were asked to, me and Keith Rayner, shout out women's coach at Emory. He actually did the play-by-play, and then I was the guy that said like, "Oh my gosh," and "Oh, that was crazy," guy. And man, it was tough. Wanting to have a lot of knowledge before the game of every player was tough, and we tried to do our research and make sure we had enough tidbits on people, and even just staying up with the game. You credit to the guys that call games. I mean, it's definitely a little tougher than you think, but once you get into it, you get into a groove, and it's not bad. So for sure, it was fun. For sure.
Yeah, I noticed that like Hardman and I, we kind of talked about some things. We had some notes, and we basically had run through all our jokes that we'd already written out and all of our little dumb facts that we'd come up with, I don't know, midway through the second quarter. And going back and watching the game, listening to yourself, which is an awful experience, having to listen to yourself. But,
yeah, I'm not looking forward to that while editing this.
But just going back and listening to it, you sound so much natural when you just call the game as it happens rather than trying to fit things in that you already have some ideas about. It's tough. And I got compared to Vern Lundquist, but interpreting anybody's names, which is like Tyler Hyde.
Yeah, and just quickly before we get too far off topic from the game, you guys, the Atlanta Hustle did post the VOD of the game in 2 halves, first half and second half, on their YouTube channel. So go check that out if you missed the live stream.
And if you happen to stop watching the live stream and go watch something now, because it got super interesting, and you're also missing us when we start talking about
And then I just wanted to say one other thing to that of commentating. Last year, when Chicago was hosting Pittsburgh for that their ESPN3 game, and we had that hour-long delay, which sucked because I got to the game 45 minutes from the original start time. But I was watching Evan Lepler and I think it was Meagles that night as well. They had their clipboards. They were going down to the sidelines, talking to everyone, taking lots of notes. So big props to the commentators. A lot more work than it looks like. All right. Next topic I have that would be a good one to start off with is the World Playing Disc Federation Kickstarter for the World's broadcast this year.
So,
And
I mean, I'm kind of surprised at how long it took to get to the 75,000. Because I thought we were easily going to play the 75,000. There's enough ultimate players, there's enough people that have a decent amount of money. But, you know, typical ultimate players leave it to the last minute to raise all the money. But then, you know, once we hit the goal, there was like 3 or 4 days left, and I'm like, well, now it's a stretch goal, we'll see what happens. And then they raised another $10,000 in like 3 days. That shocked me.
yeah, I was really surprised at that because when I donated to it initially, I didn't expect it to hit the $75,000 goal, especially with some of the flack that they're getting from people on Reddit and Twitter.
It's interesting what people think can be done with streaming. Just from streaming, going back to the Bamasecs game puzzle. You know, it took me and 2 other guys. It took us 2 nights of working, probably 2 or 3 hours of digging, even for the game, just to get all our equipment working. And we were using a single camera, a single encoder, and 1 laptop. And it was incredibly hard to get everything working properly. And that was with a single internet connection and everything. So it's interesting when people say, that's so much money, why does it take so much money? It is expensive to do that kind of thing. You know, cameras are expensive, streamers are expensive, having good internet and backup internet is expensive. So, I mean,
And I think
based on what they're promising, I'm not surprised at most people.
And I think some people had negative reactions to it initially because of the recent dissolution of Ditch. And one of the reasons that happened was the cost cited for it.
Yeah. Did you get what you were saying?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention this, and you know, the surprise of it kind of going out really quickly. And I think that may have helped our perspective a little bit because you see what you know, they do funds-wise, you know, with the collection of all the ballots and that all of a sudden, you know. But then at the same time, I mean, it is tough for the people and more expensive time. I think that's another thing. You guys spent, you know, a couple nights trying to work on this, and it's just, you know, it still had some issues. So
yeah, I mean, just anything with technology, we think it's going to be easy. It never is, and it's one of the things where we purposely didn't announce the stream until we were, I don't know, maybe 90% sure it was going to work, because you never want to announce a stream and then it doesn't work. Because if you do that, like, people are fine if you announce something super late and then it works. But if you announce something really early and then something happens and it doesn't work, people will eat you up. Because I mean, I have experience with that. We tried to stream some sections one year in Tupelo, which have a good internet connection at the fields, but just the way their network is set up, it's hard to connect to it with some encoders. I don't know, we've never really figured out why, but we kind of had advertised the week before that we were going to be looking into doing some streaming at the fields, and when it wasn't working, people were not happy. And it's interesting that people will be very unhappy with free things.
Yeah. And the other interesting part of the Kickstarter and their plans for streaming Worlds this year is that they specifically cited partnering with a major U.S. sports network to broadcast. And my biggest question out of that is, for whatever games they broadcast there, will it be exclusive to the cable channel and not be free over the internet? Because I'm sure I'm not far from the only one in the Ultimate community who doesn't pay for cable and relies on just internet.
Yeah, so I thought the way I read that was they were going to stream all of the games live, but then they were going to package up some games to be shown at a later date on a network. Kind of how USA Ultimate does finals and stuff, how have ESPN3. But so that's an interesting idea. Are they going to are they going to stream through YouTube, or are they going to stream through ESPN3, for example? But at least we know the camera works better.
Yep. And people from, if I remember correctly, it's some of the same production people from Sky's production of the 2014 Worlds, right?
Yeah, I don't have the list in front of me, but it was all recognizable faces. And I think there was also some European-based talent. I know some of the commentators, which are our favorite.
Oh, yeah. Tom Styles made a big name for himself last year at the U23 Worlds.
Yeah, it's always way more entertaining when you have a British guy on the mic.
I think that's about covers most of the stuff from WFDF and Worlds. We're still waiting to hear from them about, because they're still planning it, what games they will be streaming. I know there was a rewards tier for specifically choosing games, so I'm sure they have to hear from their backers for that. And
when did they actually announce the schedule for Worlds? Do we have it yet? I don't remember seeing it.
I'm not sure yet.
I don't think I've seen them.
Which being this far out, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I don't think it's out yet. Last time it came out, probably, I don't know, a little bit closer to the time. I mean, we're definitely getting to the point where people might start asking about it. But,
I would think about a month out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're in the midst of the college season, and so it'd be a pretty good idea pivot over to that now. You guys recently put on the beach party, and I was really hoping that I might have been able to get a team together to go down for the beach part from Chicago. But unfortunately, that was a little too difficult, especially with it being in the middle of the week.
Yeah, so that's our first foray into hosting a tournament as Bamasecs. And then some people out there don't know that we are actually Bamasecs LLC now. So we're actual
some kind of business entity, mostly just so we can have a bank account and pay web fees and stuff, not through our own. But anyways, so this is our first foray into a tournament. The reason we wanted to go down here go down to where we were is it was actually in Foley, Alabama, which is 5 miles north of Gulf Shores. There's a brand new soccer complex being built down there by Foley. It's a 16 full-size soccer fields. And the guy that runs it used to work for the city of Tuscaloosa, and with their sports tourism commission, and so he used to work with the Alabama Ultimate team, hosting tournaments and that kind of thing. So he got connected with us, and he said, I really like Ultimate. I want to bring Ultimate to the city. You guys are the ones we know who to work with. What do we need to do to get a tournament here? So we've been talking to them for over a year. Unfortunately, the complex, as with any field complex construction, got pushed back. But it's going to be open in May. But so this year we were playing on a turf farm that was right across the street from the complex, and we ended up having 18 teams come down for the grass portion. Northwestern won the tournament.
Yeah, Chicago Ultimate.
But we had a good tournament. Saturday we dealt with a little rain in the morning that messed up our parking situation, but we got it all fixed. Shout out to the Foley cops for working with us on that.
So was that like a interstate style freeway they had to cross, or was it like stoplight style, just not by a stoplight?
It's like a 4-lane, like state highway, but because of where it was, there's not many. I mean, people are going pretty fast. So they're trying to get to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
But right in front of the field, there is a stoplight, so we had to get some cops out there. There's like no crosswalks on this kind of 4-lane highway kind of thing. So we had to get some cops up there to keep people from getting hit in the cars playing Frogger. But yeah, the tournament went great. We got some glowing reviews from just like citizens who came by the tournament or interacted with Ultimate players and kind of sent, you know, the old granny that meets some Ultimate player at McDonald's and somebody's nice to them, so they send a letter to the city and like, these Ultimate players are super nice. We should bring them back. So they're all in for hosting Ultimate. I know we're going to try and bring some tournaments there. The beach portion was down at Gulf State Park, which is just one of the state parks owned by the Alabama, and it's a huge place. They have a big pavilion right on the beach. TJ was the tournament director for that portion. I'll let him talk about it.
Yeah, it was great. It ended up being a really well-run, really relaxing beach tournament. We had 10 teams set up. We had 6 mix, 4 men, and it was really good, man. It's funny. We actually had a team there. I'll keep them unnamed, but they apparently got the school suspended them from high tide, so they were like, well, here we go. Now we're going to and they had a blast. It was awesome. A lot of the teams were just really thankful that they just had something, to do during the week that wasn't just, all right, go to the beach every day, we're going to play pickup against each other or throw. And they, it wasn't long. We started the game, around lunchtime, and the team buses was, it was a couple days of cool beach ultimate, and Georgia Tech had a few teams there, and they ended up taking home the first ever beach tournament crown. They loved it. So overall, man, I would say it definitely is the best first year for that.
From a business point of view, the Gulf Shore, we worked with Gulf Shore's Orange Beach Sports Commission to get the beach access, because being in spring break, getting beach access is a little tough. But they worked with the state park, and they were really excited to have us. I was finishing up some business stuff for them today, and they were super happy with everything we did. They came out and took some videos of people playing, and it kind of blew up on Facebook within the kind of the Orange Beach community. So they were really excited. That I know they are interested in trying to put in a bid for Beach Nationals. So we've been having some conversations with them about trying to get USA Ultimate to leave Virginia Beach and go to Gulf Shores, just kind of different part of the country. Great, and people that don't know, Alabama has these awesome white sandy beaches. It's really fine sand. It's great for playing Ultimate in. It's not like some of the beaches you'll find up the East Coast that are, I don't really know how to describe them. I've never played in Chicago. What's the beaches like playing on the Great Lakes?
They're not that great. They're all man-made. The sand's pretty coarse. I used to not mind it, but then I've gone to layout twice now, so I've gotten spoiled with good sand.
So TJ, how would you compare Gulf Shores beaches to layout, playing at layout?
Well, layout is tough to top that. But I actually was at First Beach Natties as well, and I would say that the sand comparably is a little better, if not similar. And so what it's going to come down to, there's not a ton of differences other than what the Gulf Shores people can appeal, but both of those don't quite compare to the layout facility that place is concerned.
Yeah, and if you do ever get the opportunity to get on a sandblast team, it's because it's very difficult to get onto those. I was very lucky last year to get a team. I get invited onto a team by a friend. The tournament's up on Montrose Beach on the north side of the city, and if it does storm the day before, you do get the sand kind of packed down. So it is, for a beach tournament, it's pretty fast-paced ultimate, and it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the the growth of the beach tournaments, because I know that Jacksonville Ultimate down in Florida is hosting one near Jacksonville on the Florida coast. I think it might be this weekend. I know it's around the beginning of April, and they're kind of using it as a primer for teams that are going to beach nationals. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how this beach division grows, because outside of layout and sandblast and Fools Fest, that's about the whole beach circuit in the U.S. So it'll be interesting.
Wildwood too.
Oh, Wildwood, definitely.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see.
It'll be.
Gulf Shores will be is interested in hosting some beach stuff, and we may work with them. There is a big tournament, just for people that don't know about this in the Southeast. There's a tournament down in Destin, Florida, every May that's called Surf and Turf, and they actually play the grass tournament on Saturday, and then they play the bracket on Sunday. So you get kind of some different ultimate experiences, and it fills up every year. And I think it'd be interesting to do that tournament, but on the scale that we can do it now, fully in Gulf Shores, because now that we have, a place that can put 30 ultimate fields, and then Gulf State Park, which, TJ, how many fields could we put out there? 40 if we wanted to?
Yeah. Oh yeah, a very good amount.
It's a huge place, and they're more than willing to block off public beach for people to host tournaments and stuff. So we could legitimately, you could run, 100-team tournaments there easily. So it's an interesting place for the future of Beach Ultimate. We're excited to get people to come down to our neck of the woods to play, because we're tired of going everywhere else to play.
Yeah, and I think USCU is definitely more geared now to going to more kind of non-traditional locations for tournaments, especially given that Nationals is going to be in Rockford this year.
Yeah.
Which is actually, people just think about it benefiting Chicago. It's actually going to benefit the Madison guys as well, because it's pretty much the halfway point between Chicago and Madison. So yeah, getting back onto college ultimate, the Sanford Invite was recently, and in the finals there, on the men's side, we had Wisconsin over Pittsburgh in a thrilling game, and in the women's bracket, we had Whitman over Central Florida.
Yeah, so that was an interesting weekend in general. There was a lot going on, and what was interesting, at least down in the Southeast, Stanford may have been the second most important tournament that we've been considering the big turnout for Cali Classic, and especially because Cali had much better weather than Stanford, which is, this doesn't sound right, but I mean, Stanford, it's hard to take away some concrete, hey, this team is this good, or this team is definitely the best. Now, I think eventually you see some better teams like Wisconsin and Pitt, show that they can play in any kind of weather situation, or just any sort. They're very adaptable teams, and I think that's going to help the Nationals. But there are definitely some teams at Stanford that are much better than what the reports showed. The weather.
Yeah, and just comparing that, same weekend, Cali, you had so many good games, because it was nice 75 degrees with a 5-10 mile per hour breeze, and teams could just bomb it all over the place. And so you see teams, you see Auburn rise up and win 3 games in a row, win a tournament. Now they're kind of in a position to maybe win a bid this weekend. But yeah, just going on what TJ said, it's hard to really read much into Stanford and Northwest Challenge this past weekend, because there was some bad weather there too.
Yeah, let me pull up Northwest Challenge there, because I forget who won that.
Oregon finished first, and BYU was an effective second after, I think their only loss of the weekend was Oregon. Well, let's dovetail into BYU for a second. TJ,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on BYU? I'll let you go first.
Well, I don't know. I guess we have similar, opinions when it came to what USAU decided today, or the way that they went with their response to BYU. We actually, so I played at Auburn, and we had a guy come to Auburn and for grad school. It was from BYU, and he came to practice with us. And I mean, when I first found out about how they can't play on Sundays, so that's why you see them at tournaments like Warm Up, or Northwest Challenge. It's just interesting because he had mentioned that there were even a couple years when he played that they, could have made nationals. They didn't, obviously, but they had some squads that were, what if squads. So that's kind of tough because I actually got to watch a little bit of the live stream of BYU Washington game, and I mean, there are some stars on Washington, but I can't name a single player on BYU, and they were all impressive. I mean, the play was awesome. It was really cool to see them compete the way they did, and once I watched the 2 points, I bought in. I stayed in and watched the rest of that game, and credit to them. But yeah, it's a tough situation with what USAU is doing. But if you want to explain that, exactly what they said.
Yeah, so right before we actually started recording this, Ultiworld came out with a little article saying essentially that USAU wasn't going to do anything because they're just following the guidelines for the year. And for people that don't know, I'm actually the Southeast Region Director for the men's division for college. And so their response doesn't surprise me for the fact that anytime like anybody brings up anything with USA Ultimate, they follow their book. And there are good things about that and there are bad things about that. But it's at least consistency when it comes to decision making and all that kind of stuff, because the guidelines are there, so you know what to expect. And so I understand their position of we can't do anything in the middle of the season. We'll have this discussion after the season, and then we'll go from there, and we'll see if there's any changes to be made before the next season starts. So that was honestly the only thing I ever expected to happen out of this. I never expected, I'm in the middle of planning regionals for the Southeast. Myself and Katie Fox, the women's region director, and I can't imagine, USA Ultimate coming to us and saying, "Hey guys, we got to move the tournament to Friday, Saturday," and we're only a month away from the tournament. So, from that perspective, I understand that. I would be interested in hearing from the teams in the Northwest about what they would be willing to do to try and accommodate them, because so basically what USA Ultimate's saying, if the teams in the Northwest accommodate them, then they could almost force USA Ultimate's hand when it came to nationals, because if they're, so let's say sectionals or their conference, whatever, world. So say their conference agrees to either play Friday, Saturday, or a Saturday and the next Saturday, so they can advance to regionals without forfeiting. Well then, okay, let's say the region agrees, these guys earned the bid, let's give them a shot to play. Okay, so what happens then? That's my question. Would USA Ultimate even allow them to start nationals knowing that they couldn't play in the quarterfinals?
I would guess yes, because you have the majority of their play coming Friday, Saturday. That would be the only thing I see, is that they would only be an issue if they made quarterfinals.
But what happens? What happens then?
That's a great question. And here's the thing. This is what I was thinking about earlier. Because this is one team, you think that matters? Like, if there was another team that was national level, if there were more than just one, do you think they would start to go away from their book?
No. Because, and I talked to a couple of friends that are Ultimate players and have law backgrounds, even though they're different kinds of law backgrounds, but they at least can think about these things intelligently in that kind of perspective. And basically all of them said they didn't see USA Ultimate making an accommodation, especially on the fly, because once they open that can of worms, you can't not have that open. So like, there's all kinds, if there's a Seventh-day Adventist school that starts playing, they can't play on Saturdays, or some kind of Jewish school, or whatever. Just once you start making accommodations for teams, where do you draw the line to be able to start saying, oh, we can't accommodate your team? And so that's why I don't see it changing even in the off season, just because, you know, it's just, you know, where do you draw the line? And that's a tough question. And like, you know, you feel bad for BYU guys, but at the same time, like, you know, when you go to BYU, you know this is, you know, what you're walking into.
And speaking of just the USAU guidelines, and of course they're not going to change them in the middle of the season, but I remember this same conversation was had last year with BYU. And so was it that USAU didn't think about it, talk about it after the season last year just because they're waiting for BYU to be even better as they are this year? Or is it one of those things where you just don't see them ever changing?
I honestly don't think it's going to change. Just because, I mean, it's either, you know, you make a guideline and people, I mean, I don't think I see it changing, just because once you start accommodating one team for one reason, then it's very hard to tell other teams no.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a tough point to say, but I completely agree where, you know, you just can't afford to say yes one year and then, you know, the next year not have that be a possibility for maybe another team that comes along later, you know. And so that's a great point.
And then, and so a lot of people, so since they made this decision, a lot of people are now complaining, well, if they can't play at regionals, then the Northwest shouldn't even get the bid. Well, no, that's not how the bid system is set up. You know, they're doing this is exactly what the guidelines are there for. You know, when things happen, they can point to it and say, you knew what was going to happen. You know, everything is completely laid out. Because everybody likes to say, oh, this team has earned a bid. No, the team hasn't earned a bid. The team has earned a bid for the region. So if it will be interesting that if the guidelines don't change in the off season, if people that run tournaments like you know, Northwest Challenge, or, well, Northwest Challenge will probably continue to let them in, but if, you know, the warm-up TDs will say, you know, we know you want to come down and play good teams, but it's hurting our teams because, you know, BYU coming down and playing may end up taking up, you know, a possible bid from like the Southeast. So, you know, at what point I think that's an interesting balance. If there becomes some type of like discrimination against BYU of tournament TDs not wanting to let them come in because, you know, they know that they can get a bid but then can't play for it, I think that may change the discussion.
All right, then. That's a pretty good place to end with BYU. Another recent tournament we had was Easterns, and on the men's side we had Michigan over Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's second straight loss in the finals of a regular season tournament this year. And on the, oh yeah, there was no women's division at Easterns.
Yeah, the women, all the women were playing in Texas fall
yeah.
around the country, so.
With the horrible weather.
Actually, they had pretty good weather this year. I'll let you talk about Easterns, because literally the only part of Easterns that I watched was sitting under the spin tent with Gabe, watching Pittsburgh and Wilmington just make bad decision after bad decision in that quarterfinal game.
Yeah, so we had mentioned Eastern, talking about UMass over Minnesota in the final. The interesting thing is, you know, UMass is an interesting team to look at. One of the more favorite, you know, teams coming into this year. You had almost every single person returning. You had Monstar, Jen Babbitt, and also a couple big, you know, rookie pickups and who actually fielded in YCC. I didn't really watch some of those games. And, you know, UMass is one of those teams that when they're playing at full potential, that they're extending. And you wouldn't be surprised if they end up taking the finals and being a favorite at nationals. The thing is, you know, we've seen a little bit of inconsistency, which is surprising. incredible coach, and they also killed it in City Tune-Up. But they've had an up and down season, but I think they're starting to play their best open here at the end. All about maybe a little bit more, at least for me, living in the Southeast, a little bit more of a surprise when it comes to a powerhouse this year is Minnesota. I mean, they have been consistent. They've been in the top of most of their tournaments, making noise wherever they go. Winning Florida warm-up, I believe, beating Florida, and then making the finals of Eastern. That and there's not a ton of guys on Minnesota that people point out and say, hey, this guy's a stud, man, or this guy's a star. I can name a few, but the public sees big plays with these big name people from other teams, and
well, cut out again there, TJ.
Minnesota has a huge stretch, but I'll tell you what, they really were impressive, and even though they didn't pull it out of Eastern, I would watch out for them. Even though Minnesota didn't pull it out of Eastern, I would keep an eye on Minnesota for sure.
Yeah, so I think the one thing that I've noticed about Minnesota the last couple of years is they were consistently inconsistent because they would have a really good tournament. I think a year or two ago they did really well at Easterns and then just tanked at regionals. I don't know, I could be completely making that up, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. But I just remember they have very up and down, and as TJ says, they just whenever they show up, they dominate. So for Massachusetts, do you think they rely too much on Babbitt? Because when he went down against Pitt in the final of Stanford, the one where he got ruled out for a concussion, they basically just kind of collapsed once he left. Do you think they rely too much on him?
I don't think so, honestly. From what I've and also last year, that he plays honestly a lot more D points than he has O. He doesn't play O as much as you'll expect. He's not like an every point kind of guy. He's going to play important O points. He's a monster on D. But I would not say that they rely on him. Connor Klein is absurdly good as a cutter downfield. And they have some other handlers that, are out of this world right now. Their confidence is sky high, but I wouldn't say that they're a one-man team at all. And I would assume that Babbitt would stay the same.
I think my favorite comment about Babbitt through this point was listening. I think Tad said this on Multi-World podcast one day. Is he's basically, if their offensive line ever gets broken, they just put Babbitt out there. They run a full play to him. It doesn't matter if there's 3 guys on it. They just put it to the end zone, and he just goes up and clobbers everybody. And then he goes back out there and plays deep.
Yeah, that's fair. He did that at Nationals last year too. They almost pulled out their quarterfinal win. If they wanted to, they could run through him. But at some point, you're going to have good teams that are going to recognize and be able to at least put someone on him that's close, to his athleticism and his, skills and playing ability. And this is mental toughness, but I think they do a good job with him. And I would expect them to, maybe lean on him a little more in important games when we get to the series that, all of a sudden, things really matter.
And the format at Nationals really lends itself to being able to ride your best players more too. I know, people are questioning UCF's women's team, playing 9, 10 people deep, maybe on a weekend.
Maybe. I've heard 8.
But people are saying, once they get to Nationals, they're not going to be able to do that because they're going to play so many good games in a row. Well, you got to play 2, 3 games in a day, and you get at least one round break in between. That's Nationals is set up to play 10 people deep.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing is, what's funny about that is, especially you talk about the Southeast region and the way we play the 16-team bracket the past few years. That's the opposite. Mm-hmm. You have to win. You want to make semis so that you only play 3 games on Saturday. But you have to have depth because you're playing games of 15. And you can't, anticipate that your 7 or 8 guys are going to be able to win. I mean, every team is good, especially you talk about the Southeast. There are some regions where some of the top teams have a few games off. Let's just be real. But most regions though are get there. Every game's going to be tough. Every game's going to be a quality game. And so regionals are the opposite. You have to be able to make it through with your depth, and all of a sudden you do nationals, and it's like, whoo! All right, one game at a time. We're good. And so that's a great point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this year, especially the men's Southeast Regional. I was looking at, the latest rankings came out, kind of scrolling through the Southeast teams. So Georgia Tech is currently the 8th highest ranked team in the region, and they're ranked number 41 in the country. So essentially 1/5 of the top 40 are all in the Southeast. So, the quarterfinals are going to be played bananas at Southeast regions. Like, every single game is going to be a top 40 game. And I just thinking back, I don't know if any arena has ever had that since I started playing.
Yeah, okay, first of all, there's, if there's anybody that's a Southeast State or listening to this, you're going to hear it for a little bit. And shout out to Arizona State, who needed something like, 0-5 at warm-up, 3-0 against the Southeast. If you're going to do that, that means we're doing something right in the Southeast. You're comparing yourself to our region. So congrats Southeast for that. But you're right. I mean, it's going to be crazy. There's just going to be the team that ends up getting through the back door to get the second or third bid is going to have won, 3 or 4, tough, basic games to stay alive. And that's a lot out of it. So.
Yeah, I remember just last year we had 4 bids, and just watching that last game, was it Georgia and Auburn?
Yeah.
And they were both just dog tired by the time we got to that game. And it was it was just like who had the most will to win that game. Because we actually had a weird format last year because we had some lightning delays on Saturday. So we actually had to shift a round that was supposed to be played on Saturday to Sunday morning. So there ended up being 5 rounds on Sunday. And people being, players are just cramping and people are just holding it together. And it was maybe the most intense game of tired Ultimate I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, it was a great game too. You had Georgia was up 2. The hard cap horn sounded right before Auburn scored. That was 12-11 Georgia game. That was pretty intense. We all know what ended up happening after that. But yeah, that format was crazy. I was there. It was so deep. So that's where you talk about different national experiences. So.
But hopefully we won't have to deal with. Currently, the Southeast only has 2 bids, so hopefully Auburn or someone else will go up to Huck Finn this weekend and get us a 3rd bid. I know the Huck Finn schedule just came out. Do you have it in front of you, Brian?
I can quickly pull that up. I think Ultra World posted that.
Yeah. So Auburn's got 2 in their pool with the 1 seed in their pool with really important concern. That's the team that they should be aiming to pass, being 6 points behind the ranking. They also have Cal Poly below. They've got Arkansas. They played at T-Town. They're really close. Yep, Arkansas, really close game at T-Town. They played earlier this season. And then I can't remember the last.
They have Texas Christian and Purdue.
Yeah. Yep. And Purdue, who was pretty solid at T-Town as well. So I mean, now PowerPoint is going to benefit them. They're going to be able to get good points out of every game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, TJ and I were talking kind of on G-Chat during work because TJ was hiding from having to do work and spin, and I'm always at my computer. So we were talking about it, and it wouldn't surprise me if Auburn won the pool. Just looking at the team, TCU's ranking is kind of I don't really know what to make of it because TJ's at ranking is hard.
It is. I'm sorry.
But I mean, what do we make of TCU's ranking? Just because they're really inflated based on blowing out a lot of mid-level teams, but they haven't really played anyone any good. So this is they were kind of the Cincinnati from last year. Cincinnati was just kind of inflated based on a couple of early season wins. So TCU looks good in the rankings, but what have they actually done yet in the season to prove they're good? I mean, just looking at the pool, it's a bunch of games that if you show up and play well, you can win, and if you don't, teams will punish you for or if you don't play well. I expect Minnesota to probably pretty easily make the finals, but who knows?
And speaking of Minnesota, they're in the same pool as Tulane, along with Cincinnati, Colorado State, and Ohio State.
Yeah, that's a fun pool. Tulane and Cincinnati talk about two wild stories last year, kind of the headline of national craziness was going around there. And it was funny because people hyped up their game in Santa Barbara earlier this
Hopefully they lost either.
Oh no! Oh, he's back.
We lost. We didn't hear what you said.
When I was playing college, good.
We did. When you said they started hyping up.
Yeah. So, credit to those Cincinnati Tulane for being mentally tough. It would have been really easy for Tulane and Cincinnati to come back this year and still have the path as well on them, like Cincinnati and what everybody thought about their move and all that kind of stuff. Credit to them for coming back this year and once again playing really well, and then with Tulane, losing some key opponents last year, including what some people believe is the person that ended up getting them disqualified. They came back and showed, hey, we're a good team. We're a good team even without what's going on from last year. And so I look forward to seeing how those teams do this weekend. I mean, I know Minnesota is obviously the favorite in that pool, but like you said, it's like Minnesota decides to take off. Any of these teams can play well enough to surprise you.
Yeah, it's also interesting thinking about Tulane and Cincinnati. Basically, the reason Cincinnati even got that bid last year was because they had beaten Tulane earlier in the year and kind of bolstered their ranking. And so if Tulane had gotten caught earlier in the year and all of their games were wiped, Cincinnati probably doesn't end up with that bid. So in a roundabout way, Cincinnati can thank Tulane for that.
Yeah.
And then also just a quick shout out to any Midwest or Chicago people listening to the podcast this week. We've got both Loyola and U Chicago at Huck Finn as well, along with U of I, all in different pools. Oh, and Northwestern's going to be there too.
Yeah.
So good. It should be a fun tournament to keep an eye on this weekend.
I played against Chicago one year at Mardi Gras. Don't remember much about it because it was Mardi Gras, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, with Huck Finn, I mean, we're essentially, the tournament has essentially turned into like the first four tournament for the NCAA basketball tournament, because I think 17, 18, 19, and 20, all of those teams ranked are all at the tournament. So someone has to get the bid. So it'll be interesting to see, who comes out on top. Because honestly, a bid's probably going to be won in some consolation game on Sunday morning.
Did we want to start talking about Callahan videos and content in them?
I know TJ loves this. Yeah.
Oh man, let me. Yeah. So okay. I don't love choosing one side or the other strongly. Not that tight. But I'm not huge on people adding in pro or club stuff, club video to their Callahan video. I mean, now this is an unfair comparison, and so whatever. But Nick Lance basically had zero film in his greatest Callahan video of all time video, and was able to create something like that. And now I know that's unfair, but still, it's very possible to create a video that shows us what you've done in college, because that's so.
And the Callahan Award is defined as being the college MVP, right?
Well, it's actually not even the college MVP. It has all these different components, and if you'll notice, like if you go look at John Nethercutt's video last year, and Khalid's video kind of touched on it some this year, is they touch on some, youth leadership and coaching and that kind of thing. And so they actually do, they talk about just being a good ambassador for the game. And so I actually do enjoy when people add that kind of stuff in there. So, I mean, it's essentially an MVP because technically the Heisman's not the college MVP, but
yeah.
It is. TJ, you got any songs that you want to see people include this year?
Wow, you caught me off guard. That's really a good question to come back to me. Seriously, I've got a few. But yeah, I just want to note that so far, the musical choices of the handful of videos that have come out aren't really impressive so far. So if you're listening to this and you're currently, listening to this while making your friend's highlight video, just change whatever song you play.
Do we know if we have any footage of any Callahan nominees doing the dab as celebrations after goals that might make it into any Callahan videos?
I hope not. I will not vote for you. Callahan.
I mean, I might vote for him. That's good. It's got to be a good dab. So,
I mean, just thinking about Callahan videos, who do you think, I mean, other than players like Bab, I mean, like, honestly, like, I think the award is Babbitt's. If they dominate through regionals, I mean, considering that voting happens before nationals, which I think is a little silly, but
yeah. So it's interesting. You look at Babbitt as a favorite simply because of his playmaking ability. But I would say Babbitt, I don't know, man. When you watch them play, and it's the same with the pit. It's almost like a pit curse, where you have so many good players on one team that people can name. When you watch him, he doesn't stand out as much as you would think. His size, talk about single point like that. It doesn't have to be consistent. There's a lot of good players, so it's the same thing with guys. It's definitely tough for it's gonna be tough for Trent to win it. I know he's doing the attempt of having a free pipe from the fall, and then maybe they're gonna come out with something later. But I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you what. You mentioned our Bamasecs select game. Bobby Lay has come out with one that's great. That guy is good.
And he essentially dominated that game. Like, I was trying to keep stats, and he had like 50% of the goals and assists in that game while I was keeping stats.
Oh yeah. And I mean, I talked to the hustle players and even the hustle coaches, and we mentioned I live with the GM. And we said, all right, who's the best player on the field tonight? It was Bobby. And he just, you talk about somebody that can throw the disc. That dude knows how to throw the disc. And, I'm looking forward to his. I assume he'll have one. I'm looking forward to whoever Georgia decides. Auburn's an interesting. Ryan was one of the better ones last year. Ryan Landry was one of the better ones last year. Was kind of unknown for that team now, but his buddy Evan, also on Auburn, did a great job with editing. So all around great video.
Also had great music quotes.
Yeah, and that's a thing. Like, as much as this isn't really the best video content, it's gonna matter. It's gonna matter. Last year, somebody who pays attention to our tweets, Matt Bennett, talked about music choices. You either loved it or you hated it. But in my personal opinion, he could have had a better video to attempt to get him the award. Now, did he care about that much? Probably not. He seemed like a pretty loose-goofy guy. But, it matters. And so it's interesting how, all of a sudden the video is going to matter a lot, and I'm looking forward to whoever Minnesota picks. UNCW, are they going to do Xavier again? I believe he had one last year. So it's going to be interesting.
All right. I think that about wraps it up for the topics so far for this week. Running out of time here, so didn't get to touch on any of the AUDL stuff. I just want to mention that it is opening weekend there this weekend, and the first ESPN3 stream will be in the Southeast between Raleigh and Charlotte. And you also have Dallas streaming their first home opener against Austin, which will be a fun game to watch as well, and see how some of that star power will play together.
I know Atlanta is going to be recording their game against Nashville on Saturday, and I think the plan is to either post it late Saturday night or early Saturday morning. They're gonna be planning to stream some during the year. I'm not exactly sure how many games. Some of their bigger games, I think, they play maybe when Raleigh's here, when Dallas is here. I know we kind of talked about this off air. I'll bring it up just before we close. It's a surprise that more AUDL teams don't stream all their games, because I mean, we talked about how much it costs, but like it's like a one-time cost kind of thing to get it set up, especially with people who are playing with actual press boxes and real internet connections and stuff. So that's one thing, moving forward with the AUDL, they're looking for stability and more fans and stuff. Like, step up your stream game, guys.
Yeah,
and
it will would the stream take away from the management?
I don't think so, because
no.
I mean, people that watch the games, people that are too far away to go to the games. I mean,
it's so cheap to go to games in person. It's worth it.
And you get to go watch your buddies play. I mean, it's not like we're watching. The majority of people that are watching the games are people that are playing with people in the club season anyway. So you're just going to hang out with people.
It's for sure.
It's more of a social thing. It's not really to watch the games. I know AUDL people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's one of those things where it's all about the in-person experience. I hope people, go and enjoy that. And like you said, it's really cheap right now, currently. If it grows, it may not be, but right now it's awesome. And you get to hang out with your friends and drink water out of your Nalgene.
All right. Well, for anyone who made it this far into the show, we thank you, as it is, again, our inaugural show. Of course, follow Bamasecs on Twitter at Bamasecs SECS. You can follow myself at Shady Guy, and that's Shady spelled SHEADY. It's a play on my last name of Shay. And TJ, what's your Twitter handle?
You probably don't want to follow me, but at TAMAJAY. But you can just follow along Bamasecs. Me and Francis throw our stuff up on there.
Yeah, our personal Twitter account is pretty boring.
Yeah, I just love the Warriors. So you're just going to get a lot of open tweets.
And then also feel free to follow friends of the show at Beast Plains and at SapCon. And SapCon has an underscore in their handle as well. So yeah, definitely look forward to next week where we talk more about the AUDL and their season opener. And of course Huck Finn too, since that will have occurred.
Yep, we'll have bids to talk about.
Bids.